Hey, this is the July 13th, 2022 workshop, and we're going to bounce around a little bit on the agenda. I think, first up, I think I'm going to have the Elkton Community Kitchen come on up and give their presentation. Do we need another chair to bring up for you? No, you can stand or sit, whatever you want to do.
Thank you.
No, give her a chair, please. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Tony.
All right, give us an update. Give us an update on the Elkton Community Kitchen.
All right. First of all, thank you for...
Hey!
I'm glad everybody can make it.
So, in conclusion...
I vote yes. I vote yes anyway. You guys are hard on the old man. That was perfect.
all right, a little bit more serious here. Thank you for adding us to your agenda. This is our first time in this forum, so help us out, if you will. I would just start by saying, Mr. Mayor and the Commissioners, it's an honor to be here before you. My name is Dot Ellsroth, and with me is Rob Ann Palmer. And we're here today representing Elkton Community Kitchen, located here in Elkton at 209 East Main Street. Our purpose here today is to provide you with information regarding Elkton Community Kitchen and request your active support in highlighting the motto of community serving community. So first, a little background on ECK. We're a faith-based organization, nonprofit, providing service in Elkton, Cecil County. April 7th, 2003 marked the startup of ECK when the first lunch was served at Elkton Presbyterian Church right here on Main Street. So for over 19 years, operating as a 501c3 nonprofit, we are 100% volunteer, no paid positions or staff, and all operating funds are donations. We have a single purpose mission: provide a nutritious lunch each Friday to those in the Elkton area who are in need of a meal in a wholesome, safe, reliable environment. And here's a key point. ECK has a shared purpose of community serving community. Our entire mission is donated and served by volunteer individuals, businesses, schools, organizations, and churches. Now, on Saturday, October 22nd, 2022, ECK is hosting our first annual local artist juried community art festival in celebration of our consistent presence in this neighborhood, accomplished by this amazing fact of community serving community. So we thought about asking for your support for Elkton Community Kitchen because we believe that your endorsement will highlight the art festival and drive increased attendance to the event. But then we realized we wanted to recommend a much broader and much more relevant purpose for celebration. So we're here today to ask this town council to declare the month of October 2022 as Community Serving Community Month. We'd like for you to consider that through your actions, you'll encourage businesses and organizations in town to give back to Elkton, and perhaps join us to highlight the ways businesses and organizations are already giving back to Elkton as community serving community. What better reminder of community serving community is Cecil Cares, an annual county-wide day of service scheduled for October 1st. And that could serve as the launch for the entire month of October, dedicated to demonstrating various ways that our community serves our community. If the focus might begin with businesses on Main Street, then eventually this idea could grow and be a whole town celebration of all the ways we all give back to our community. Now, every business benefits from an excellent reputation derived from goodwill and social responsibility, and every nonprofit agency and organization derives a solid reputation from transparency, mission, relevance, and execution. So why not encourage profits and nonprofits to partner and demonstrate community serving commitment. So perhaps this town council could consider these starter actions. Include the declaration of October 22 as Community Serving Community Month in these meeting minutes. Perhaps highlight this activity in your internal communications, as well as any external communications that are available. Arrange other events that showcase community activity. And encourage businesses and organizations to also have their own community service events during October, and advertise how they routinely give back to Elkton and surrounding communities. Some examples that might happen, for example, of give back areas along Main Street might be for goods or money donations. For example, businesses and or their employees could highlight their charity of choice by asking for donations from their customers. Perhaps there's drop-off points for canned pet food, pet beds, towels for animal shelters and adoption centers. Businesses might provide or donate a percentage of a day's revenue to their favorite organization or charity. There might be money donations for the various organizations in our town, like Paris Foundation, Cecil County Arts Council, even Elkton Community Kitchen. There might be canned goods for community pantries like that serviced by Immaculate Conception and Elkton Presbyterian Church. There might be volunteer sign-up kiosks for Elkton Rotary or Christiana Care Union Good as New Shop or, again, ECK. So those are some examples that might happen along our businesses along Main Street for the month of October. And then finally, we ask that you allow the placement of advertising banners along Elkton Main Street to draw attention to the Community Art Festival and the October celebration. And of course, your final approval would be needed for the artwork style and the placement. And then finally, of course, we give special invitation to all of you to come and enjoy the Community Art Festival. And I would invite you just to imagine how delightful it might be to walk down Elkton Main Street and see example after example of our community serving our community. Thank you for your time.
Well, listen, thank you so much. It was an absolute, thorough, thought-out presentation, and I believe that this is something that this not only the board can get behind, but our town could get behind.
Excellent.
And we'll bring it up at the next meeting for vote to move forward, maybe with a proclamation, and see how we can maybe get some more involvement into this movement. But it's I really appreciate you bringing this forth, and I think it's something that we can get behind.
Thank you. We're working with Grunge Muffin Designs.
Oh, nice.
Potential banners for the lampposts. And we know that you folks have not done a across the street banner, but this is for Community Art Festival, but for the entire month of Community Serving Community campaign, they could certainly do some different artwork. So.
Have you discussed all this with anyone from the Alliance?
We have. We spoke with Jessica, who is leaving. We've also spoken with Nancy, and they had their meeting yesterday that she presented to.
Oh, okay.
She said that she would get back with us about her ideas regarding that.
Good.
We are partnering with the Cecil County Arts Council in the actual day, the festival day. So it's going to be a great time. We have a lot of really interesting artists, so we look forward to seeing you.
Have you contacted the Elkton Rotary Club? I'm sure they would be more than happy to pitch in on these efforts.
Oh, we sure will.
We will do that.
They're
yes.
very community-minded. I'm part of it, Rob's part of it, and I'm sure that we would be willing to pitch in.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Gibbons is retired, so he probably had some time too.
Come by any Friday for lunch.
Okay, let's bring up the folks from Fuel Masters. We've got a couple items here in front. We got, folks, introduce yourself.
I'm Dan, I'm with Fuel Master. This is Richard with TEC. He's one of our distributors.
So let me just lay a little groundwork so everyone knows what we're talking about here at the Maryland Municipal League Conference. As we were walking through the trade show, this was one item that actually caught my eye, and there's some unique things that go along with this system, and I'm not sure if we have anything like this in our system at this point, Lou, but I'll let these...
Brian can tell you what we have, how we do that, monitor our fuel per vehicle. We do have a system.
Well, go ahead and lay it on us. Give us a presentation. Tell me what we got.
All right, so guys, I'm from Fuelmaster. I'll kind of give you all a background of our company and then kind of roll into how we can actually help you guys manage your fuel, where it's going, who's using it. We started back in the 70s with the Air Force Department of Defense. We currently support all fueling sites for them, foreign and domestic. In the early 90s, we segued into the commercial sector, which is you guys, municipalities, construction companies, state DOT. Currently, we support the whole state of Maryland DGS on our system, as well as all of Cecil County. So there's two references that are very close to you guys. We're all built in the USA, manufactured in Tallahassee, Florida. We designed the system in-house with our engineers. Everything in our system is modular in design, so it's forward and backwards compatible for a minimum of 15 years, meaning that there's always an upgrade path for our system. Because we're made in the USA, built in the USA, we can get you guys parts within 24 hours in your hand. Dial into the unit, diagnose over 90% of the issues that can arise over the phone. So our support time, uptime on this unit is going to be excellent. Everything on the inside of the unit can be easily repaired in 20 minutes or less by non-technical personnel with a set of wrenches and screwdrivers, very easy to operate. As far as the system goes, we can do everything from keypad entry on a low level up to keys for each vehicle. We can do cards, we can do proximity badges like you use to scan indoors, and what I believe Mr. Alt was mostly interested in was our AIM device. This is a passive fueling device. This plugs into your OBD 6-pin or 9-pin on your heavy-duty vehicles, mounts under the dash, runs to the actual gas cap where the filler neck is. On your dispensers, on your existing nozzles, we put a non-powered RFID ring on there with a spring and a clamp so nobody can tamper with it. All the driver has to do at this point is pull up, insert that nozzle into the tank. It authorizes them and knows whether they're there for gas or diesel. It won't allow any cross fueling. And because we're plugged into the OBD, it allows us to pull the hours, miles, any engine error codes that vehicle may be throwing without that driver having to input that information. To pile onto that and pull the nozzle out, the transaction is terminated. So there's no fuel going in any unauthorized vehicle, gas cans, neighbor's jet ski, whatever it may be. So, but that gives you full total security on your fuel and gives you accurate information to be able to work on your maintenance.
So that brings up a question about fuel tanks or carry 5-gallon tanks for, let's say, our grass cutting crew. How does that, how do you do that?
So with the fuel tanks, you would still have the ability to use those keys right there. And those keys can be set with a gallon limit and a daily quantity limit. So if you know that that key's for a gas tank, you can put a 5-gallon limit on that. If you know they shouldn't be filling those tanks more than a couple times a day, you can put that limit on there as well.
So what's unique about this system, if I'm understanding correctly, each police car would have this, every public works vehicle would have it, whatever personnel would want gas, and it does it automatically.
Correct. There's no user interface at the terminal. Unless you want to know who's fueling it, you can prompt for a user ID at that point. Most customers that are using our AIM device do not prompt for a user ID because they know all their fuel went into their county vehicle or city vehicle.
Then I guess it'll give you a printout.
Well, you'll have software reporting. We have client-based that houses on your server, or we have a web-based program that's on the cloud that you guys can log into. You can schedule reports, you can export this data into accounting software, vehicle maintenance software. You have a lot of options for that.
Very good. Any comments or any questions?
And you have technicians in this area?
For local representation, I cover all the DGS, Maryland, Cecil County, and other municipalities.
Okay, very good.
We got techs from Pennsylvania down into Virginia.
Yeah, we have over 500 certified distributors throughout the country, as well as about 8,000 commercial customers.
Very good.
What would, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What would be the user, I mean, what would be the purpose of identifying a user, even though we are small?
Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say on this, somebody's fueling and they drive off with the nozzle, and it's in their car. They pull it out and leave it on the ground. At least you would know who that last person in the fuel was. Now, if you're on a keyed system, which
Brian, can you tell us about our
You can probably
system?
explain what you guys are doing now.
So, our system that we utilize right now is gas void. We upgraded it about, I think it's about 3 years ago now to, now it's, cloud-based, stored on the cloud. A lot of the things that you had explained that gas void does to some of the, like the ODB2 and, that I'm not sure. I think they can adapt to that too. Basically, what we're doing now is we have a keypad out at the pumps.
Mhm.
Everybody has their own unique IDs. We key in manually the mileage, and I know from there you're getting it from the ODB2.
Sure.
We don't currently have that, but I think they can put that on the system. So we're entering in. Some of us have proximity readers where we put it up there, and basically our personal, who I am, goes in, and then you enter in your truck, because the way, especially in public works, one person could be driving one truck one day and the next day.
Sure.
So, we've got all the reporting, right on the system there. We can pull any kind of reports, who was filling, or gallons, we're putting that vehicle that day. So yeah, at a high level, that's.
Yeah, so right now you guys are using, sounds like just a keypad entry of,
Yeah.
Digits in, digits out. I mean, you can restrict that a little further with a key transaction where you use a key, but your total solution of full security and accurate information and not having to chase the miles is the AIM device.
Well, when we met down there at the Municipal League, I was even unaware that we even had anything, right? And it's good to understand what we have and to understand what we could have.
Absolutely.
And could you send us over, would you quote us by the device, or would you quote us by a system? How would you do that?
Is this your only fueling site, the one that's down the road?
Correct, yeah. Public Works building is the only fueling site we have.
So you can do it per unit, per vehicle, right?
Correct, and we quote, a pedestal unit out there to control it, and then we give you a per vehicle quote.
I'd like to see those numbers if you would do that.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for these guys? Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you, guys.
I've
Thanks,
got a
guys.
couple brochures
That'd be perfect.
and cards I can leave here.
That'd be great. Yeah, make sure you give one to Louis, the guy there in the,
And a lot of the stuff, I think,
and you might want to give one back here to Brian.
yeah, I appreciate
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate y'all's time today. Thank you.
Really
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks for
it.
coming in.
everything
Yeah,
there.
thank you guys.
Hello.
We'll clear your table off too.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Just to make sure, so
Yeah.
people know that we're doing something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It would be a different system. Guys, thank you so much.
Sir, thank you.
And you can make that attention to me, or however you want to get it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's bring up the, Gene, how long do you think you're going to be?
It depends on the discussion.
Bring yours on. No, I want you to bring yours up. Well, listen, we're going to bring our guests up. We got guests here from the Local Government Infrastructure Financing Program. Come on up. I think this is important for all to hear.
Yeah, you want me to come over there? You want to come over there?
Good afternoon. My name is Charlie Day, and this is my colleague Gerald Conrad. And thank you to all the commissioners for inviting us.
I'll come over there.
Come up and pay a visit and meet and explain the program. Thank you, Michelle.
Do you want to see if we can get this?
I'm happy to give it a whirl if we can.
We can try, otherwise, I did print out the presentation for everyone. I do want to warn you that it's going to get really blue. Mayor, would I just push this again, did it go to sleep?
Yep.
I think so, let's see, let's go back here.
Into the computer.
No, sir, we're going to try right here on this, see if this works. And you know what? I'm trying to remember where I plugged in. Sir, I honestly don't know.
It's okay.
Let me get this. My apologies, because I'm thinking we. All right, let's get this go. Yep, let's try that.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for trying to get some connectivity.
We're gonna get it figured out.
So we're with the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, and we have a number of responsibilities, but we're primarily responsible for administering the state's local government infrastructure finance program. Sorry, I might have it back to you all. And
No, you can sit.
Is that all right? Yeah. Well, anyways, the point is that we'd like to do is explain the program, how it works, advantages, eligibility, and go through that a little bit. So, a little history about the program. The program, the state's local government infrastructure finance program, is a loan program that helps municipalities in the state of Maryland access capital at reasonable rates and reasonable terms to fund infrastructure projects. The legislature...
I do apologize for interrupting. If you'll look at the screen and tell me what I'm going to open, because if I'm opening Dad's folder, I'll be happy to do
That's
so.
Dad's folder. So I'm borrowing my son's thumb drive, because Dad's thumb drive only has about 8 megabytes of data capacity, and my son's has about 250.
Now, tell me which one?
Do you have PowerPoint?
Yeah, we would. So
Okay.
let's try the PowerPoint one. Now I see it. Okay, I apologize. Just bear with me.
Yay, because there's some really cool pictures on here I wanted to share.
All right.
Hope your son doesn't have anything on there.
Yeah, that's so this is going to take a few seconds. All right.
Well, all those in a minute.
Okay. Okay, go ahead and click it, Michelle.
I'll work on it.
Huh?
Hold on.
And you can go on to the next slide. And we can move on to the next slide. So the program was created by the Maryland legislature back in 1985. We did our first financing in 1988. So to date, from a historical perspective, since the first issuance, we've administered 39 distinct bond offerings. We've raised over $556 million in capital in the bond markets and led it to 66 municipalities, 4 counties, and 2 instrumentalities of counties to fund hundreds and hundreds of infrastructure. I was looking at the sort of regionally, Charles County's used the program, Northeast has used the program, Perryville has used the program. Elkton used the program before my time. I think you were one of the first borrowers in the program. Many years ago, you borrowed just under $1 million to refinance some existing debt. And I'll go into a little bit about that later. But some of your sort of more comparable peers that have also used the program include Aberdeen. Aberdeen's been a very active user of the program. They've used it 8 different times, most recently in 2020. Highland Grace has used the program 7 times, most recently in 2020. Tacoma Park has used the program, Hyattsville has used the program, Westminster has used the program, Cumberland has used the program, Cambridge has used the program, and Bel Air. I use Bel Air as an example because they're just close by. So what is the mechanism? So you have a cabinet level agency that is the Department of Housing, and we have a financing office called the Community Development Administration. And we issue bonds and we lend those proceeds to local government to fund infrastructure projects. and it's a conduit issuance mechanism. So what do I mean by that is that we, Daryl and I, we travel across the state and we work with local governments like the town of Elkton, and where we identify they have a need to borrow money to fund eligible projects, we aggregate that demand. And by aggregating, we capture efficiencies and economies of scale that none of the local governments individually would be able to achieve on their own. Right? There are 23 counties in Maryland and 157 incorporated municipalities in Maryland. And frankly, the Montgomery counties of the world, the Howard counties of the world, the Cecil counties of the world, they have the ability, the resources, and the wherewithal to administer public bond offerings on their own. But smaller jurisdictions, much less active in the bond market, you know, this program is particularly suitable for smaller jurisdictions, for those for which administering a public bond offering on your own is inconvenient and or expensive. And again, with the cabinet level agency that is the department, we have billions of dollars in bond issuance experience. We have a well-earned reputation in the capital markets. We deal with the investment bankers. We deal with the rating agencies. We deal with the financial advisors. We deal with the underwriters council and bond council. And jurisdictions that participate in the program, not active bond issuers, can sit back and relax and know that they're in good hands with the state's program. So we can go on to the next slide. I can go on to the next slide. I'm sort of bouncing around here a little bit. This is just a quick, this gives you an idea just since 2004, the jurisdictions that have used the program. So we cover the entire state. And we've worked with a lot of municipalities. Next slide. So the advantages of the program. Well, I talked about the conduit issuance and the aggregation. So, you know, there are costs associated with doing public bond offerings, but it is the preferred method by which the states in the United States, large municipalities, counties, they access the capital markets, issue bonds, and to fund capital improvements. Right? It's the preferred execution to secure capital. So beyond that, and our conduit issuance mechanism, the efficiencies and economies of scale, aggregating the local government borrowers and spreading out those costs. You know, jurisdictions have some say in dealing with, you know, identifying projects. We've had jurisdictions come in to fund a single project, borrowing maybe a few $100,000. We've had a jurisdiction come in and borrow $22 million to fund dozens of projects. We can do different projects with different terms. With this caveat, we can do terms as short as 5 years and as long as 30 years, and anything in between, with the caveat that the term of the loan cannot exceed the useful life of the project. The best example I always like to give is the useful life of a police car is 5 years. And so we wouldn't be able to go beyond a 5-year term. And that makes sense. You don't want to have an asset on the books with a loan obligation for 10 years for the asset that has a useful life of 5, right? Jurisdictions can choose to do so, but they're not required to obtain the services of the financial advisor. You're not required to obtain the services of bond counsel. We've worked with jurisdictions. We have bond counsel, and we have all of these template forms that have been vetted by bond attorneys over decades now. And they have all the boilerplate language, and so it's more of a plug-in, fill-in-the-blank forms. We have a template form of resolution ordinance. We have a template form of intent to reimburse resolution, things of that nature. So it's fairly easy to use. Other advantages, so jurisdictions have some say in determining the term of the loan. You can identify one or more projects. We can have different projects with different terms within that 5 to 30-year term range. Next slide. Eligibility. Well, a couple of things. One is statutorily, regulations, only incorporated municipalities are eligible to use the program. Elkton checks that box, right? We can fund, broadly speaking, if the project is owned, operated, and maintained by the local government and it benefits the public service system, we can fund it, okay? We tend to fund mostly, we do tax exempt executions. And it's just jurisdiction comes in with one or more projects, we vet them, we do the due diligence to make sure it qualifies for tax exempt purposes. It's a preferred means because the tax exempt, you get a lower rate versus a taxable execution. But it's a little known fact that we have done taxable executions. I'll give you two examples. The city of Aberdeen borrowed money years ago to fund land acquisition for where the Cal Ripken baseball stadium resides. And so that involved private use. It didn't qualify for tax exempt, so we did a taxable execution. Another example is that the city of Westminster borrowed money back in 2019. We actually refinanced some bank debt for them. The original proceeds from the bank loans were used to purchase their fiber optic cable that runs throughout the incorporated limits of Westminster, the broadband. So we refinanced that at a lower rate. Again, it was a taxable execution. But those, broadly speaking, I won't read the slide to you, that captures it, the essence of it. The kind of projects that we do are the boilerplate things that we all think of, roads, sidewalks, but if you can go on to the next slide. The remaining slides are photos, which I think photos, do a good, much better job than I can explaining, but I'll give you some things that are here. So, Chestertown, we funded the purchase of their marina.
Is that marina owned by Town of Chestertown?
Yes, it is. The middle photo is Tacoma Park's Town Hall Community Center. That is the cleanest trash truck I've ever seen in my life, City of Aberdeen. Next slide. We've purchased a lot of equipment for jurisdictions, including police cars, fire trucks, dump trucks, front loaders. Next slide.
May I ask a quick question, please?
Yeah.
So equipment, specifically, fire equipment. If a fire company is not an operating department of a municipality, could it still be financed for that acquisition?
If you all own the equipment.
Only if we own the equipment. Okay.
And some jurisdictions in Maryland cover.
I see.
Do we have to maintain ownership, or can we donate it?
You need to maintain ownership while you have the debt outstanding. You have a loan. We do a lot of water and sewer, but I also want to be clear that in the state of Maryland, Maryland Department of the Environment is the preeminent water and sewer funding mechanism. They have federal dollars pumped into their program, they have state funding, they have the revolving loan program, and we can't touch their rates. They have subsidized rates. If you qualify as a disadvantaged community, there's a lot of loan forgiveness, but there's a lot of demand for their dollars.
Our $40 million sewer plant was funded through MDE. That's
Big
we
price
had a
tag.
good rate.
Fabulous rates, loan forgiveness. But you have to do the pre-application, and if it rates, ranks, and scores well, they'll fund it. You got to make their list, that cutoff. If you don't make the cutoff, they're going to tell you, apply again next year. So what we do is we tend to sort of backfill projects where jurisdiction, MDE says, no, we're not going to fund it this year. If they want to move forward with projects, we fund it. Next slide. This is a water dome covers for the city of Frostburg.
Oh my gosh, look at that, Lou.
We're not doing that, we're using water.
There's our dome.
Well, that's expensive.
There's our dome.
Well, I think their pools there, they sit on top of a mountain, and the climate out there can be a good bit colder than it is here for longer periods of time. So the water dome cover is very helpful for them. Next slide. This is the wastewater treatment plant in the city of Cumberland. Some improvements. Next slide. This is the town of Middletown, and this is their new water reservoir system.
What town is that?
The town of Middletown.
So, explain this to me. It's underground.
Well, it's just a reservoir that they're building, you know, the water will, I need updated pictures. I haven't had them since COVID. So this is their new water reservoir.
Interesting.
Next slide. I always like to show some before and after pictures. So this is actually also in Middletown. This is West Green Street. And actually to the left of West Green Street is a school, public school. So you can see the before and after did a lot of work. And we do street improvements, but we also more broadly do roadway improvements. And roadway improvements, I think you all know this, it's a broader term that allows you to do more things and encompasses more improvements. You can not only do the street resurfacing, the overlay, you can do the subsurface, if there are water and sewer lines that run underneath that road, those kind of things can be improved, and of course should be improved, because the last thing you want to do is repave the road and then 3 years later have to turn around and tear it up to replace the water line. Curbs and sidewalks. Next slide. Also roadway improvements in Middletown. You can see sort of the before and after, substantial improvements of that road. Next slide. This is the best example, sort of stormwater improvements that's also eligible. This is in the town of Centerville.
Looks like Delaware Avenue.
Next slide. We do a lot of facilities, so public works facilities, town halls, parking garages, police stations, fire stations. Obviously, city-owned, it would need to be a city-owned fire station. That particular fire station in the right photo is in the city of Salisbury. That's the middle photo is Aberdeen's Public Works Facility. And most recently, Perryville borrowed money to fund the construction of their new police station. Next slide. I think this is, again, another good before and after picture. This is the city of Frostburg. They own this building. The picture on the left is sort of what it looked like before major renovations. They were sort of cramped. If you've been to Frostburg, their city administrative offices and the like were in a smaller building, and they were really piled in there. And they renovated this building and expanded and moved some of the department folks over there. Next slide. So I always like to do this one because there are other things that we can do. We've also funded, park improvements. And in the case of this, it's a little sort of a theater, outdoor theater. We have some jurisdictions that actually own and maintain public pools, and that pool is in the city of Laurel. That little theater stage is also in the city of Laurel. Laurel's been an active participant in the program in the past. We've also funded the purchase of the Canon software and equipment. That may be the last set of slides that show photographs, if my memory serves. Next slide. I'll just add one more thing. We have historically refinanced a lot of debt in jurisdictions, whether it be bank debt or USDA debt. What we do is we sort of use a market convention is that if we're able to achieve at least a 3% savings over the remaining life of the loan on a present value basis, market convention states that you should look to refinance existing debt. We are in a rising interest rate environment. If you go to the, I think I have, maybe, do I have one more slide?
No, she skipped over.
She skipped over.
That's okay, we got it here.
But that's just, there's a slide that shows the 10-year U.S. Treasury. And I wish I'd actually gone a little bit farther back in history. If you'd gone back another 10 years, you would have seen that curve going way, way up, much higher. And the only reason I mention it is, yes, it's true that interest rates are rising. We missed the bottom. But historically speaking, I think we continue to be in a low interest rate environment relative to, if you look at over a 20, 30, 40-year period. It's still not, relative to the time frame, it's still a reasonable time to borrow. I'll stop talking and see if you have any questions.
Charles, what's the process of moving forward with a project with you? You mentioned, do we put together a submittal of some, is there an application, or is there?
Well, a good start is an expression of interest, which is a form on our website, which you can sort of describe briefly in a one-page form, the jurisdiction, contact information, and a little brief description of the project or projects. That's a good start. Then we would probably look to set up a meeting. I like face-to-face, but we are happy to do conference calls if that's more convenient, to sort of go over and listen to what your projects are. Like Daryl and I, when we have meetings like this, at the end of the day, we want you all to get the lowest rate. And so if it works out that the state's local government infrastructure finance program is the best execution, great. But if a bank is better execution, if USDA is better execution, if MDE is better execution, we're gonna steer you in that direction. So there's a good chance we might talk you out of using the program just as much as we would talk you into using the program. At the end of the day, the lowest cost of capital for you all is a win for you. It's a win for the state of Maryland, right? So we don't lose any sleep. There's no giant bonus for us. We work for the state of Maryland.
We've got, go ahead, Daryl.
So if I might add, if you are considering a bank loan, one benefit that the program offers is the rate that we offer is fixed for the life of the term, rather it be 10 years, 20 years, what have you. Very often banks are reluctant to lend fixed term rates for that loan. So if you're in the program, the rate you receive at the issuance is fixed, and you'll know exactly the cost up front. It won't change, and that's sort of another benefit of our financing mechanism compared to bank loans. Usually bank loans long term are very low. And as Charlie mentioned, in a rising interest rate environment, that's something that you may want to consider.
We're a market rate product, so you might be asking, well, what rate can you offer? Well, if I knew what rates were going to be in 3 months, I'd actually be sitting on some small island somewhere drinking a martini right now, because that'd be very valuable information. But the last pooled issuance that we administered, we priced in mid-November, and we closed, I think it was December 2nd. And we had 6 jurisdictions in that pooled issuance. It was a $150,000 pooled issuance involving 6 jurisdictions. We had a couple of different terms. We had a jurisdiction with a 7-year term, and the interest rate that we were able to secure and pass through. Fixed rate, it's not going to change. Once we finalize pricing our bond issue, you're locked in. It was 1.06% for a 7-year term. 10-year term, the interest rate was 1.348%.
Wow.
Wow.
15 years was 1.956%. 20 years, we had a 20-year term, it was 2.311%. And 30 years, it was 2.673%. Those are very good rates. Our rates tend to be very competitive. But, we fast forward to today, we've seen the Fed raise short-term interest rates several times already. The short end of the curve, all indications are they're going to raise the short-term rate again another 75 basis points at the end of this month. Rates are rising, as indicated by that graph. But again, if you look at it for a 20 or 30-year perspective, it's still not a bad.
So the city of Aberdeen acquired through your program the land acquisition for the Ripken Stadium.
That's correct.
So the city of Aberdeen continues to own that land until the debt is paid, or does it go to Ripken?
They did own it while the debt was outstanding. They borrowed the money in 2001. They borrowed almost $2 million.
Okay.
They paid off that loan years ago. And I couldn't tell you today whether the city still owns the land.
Interesting. Well, listen, you gave us a lot to think about here, because we do have quite a few little projects. One, we're looking at restoring the old town hall building. We've actually got some drawings on that. I'm not sure where we're at in the process, but I know that Gene will make me aware of where we're at with it. But that's one project, and we're trying to get some assistance to do another flood control study. And if we're able to make those couple of things happen, whether it's just the beautification of the Big Elk Creek, we're going to need some funding.
We would love to work with the town of Elkton, and we endeavor to be a service, and happy to help any way we can.
Perfect. Any questions for these guys? Lou, any questions?
How's your business lately with Barbo?
That's a great question. So between last year at the Maryland Municipal League Summer Conference and the most recent concluded, this is an unprecedented time in American history with the amount of money that's flowing down to local governments. A lot of money. And rightly so, I think the jurisdictions are focused in on spending it.
Because
Dotting the i's and
we have a
crossing.
standard allowance of 10 million, so we wouldn't need to borrow money, and I just wondered how other municipalities want to borrow money if they have ARPA funds available under standard allowance.
Well, I guess maybe you're thinking of other projects that, that don't qualify for ARPA, that they now, with this windfall of money that they didn't anticipate in the last 24 months, they're looking at other projects that the mayor and council or mayor and commissioners would like to get done or see get done, that they wasn't on their radar, were it not for the ARPA money.
That's all I have.
Guys, thank you so much for coming into town.
Thank you very much for having us.
I really appreciate you coming in. This is a great presentation. It was great information to have, and believe me, you've got my mind spinning right now.
Good food for thought. I definitely think we need to discuss this further.
Yeah.
Well, if I understand as we leave here today, if you have any other questions that come up after this meeting, you have our contact.
Gene, you have a question?
If we were able to obtain grant funds that pay for a portion of a project, can this be used to cover our portion of the
match?
Cost of the match?
Yes, just we got to also keep in mind on the project itself, make sure that the project qualifies. But yes, if it's an infrastructure project and meets the definition of an infrastructure project, absolutely, this could be the match. We have seen that. I mean, I've been with the state for coming up on my 19-year anniversary, so I've seen it. I just want to make clear that our program, unfortunately, it's just a loan program. I wish we had grant money. We don't, but the state does administer, the department administers several grant programs, community legacy, community development block grant, strategic demolition come to mind. So, sort of compiling and aggregating and having a funding stack from different sources is not uncommon.
Right. A lot of times you can't match state to state funds.
Right,
so.
right. Well, and our funding is not from the state. So I have to think about it this way. Yes, you have a state agency that's administering the conduit issuance mechanism in the Department of Housing. But our funding comes from the capital markets. It comes from bond investors, individuals, banks, pension funds, institutional investors that are lending us their capital. So our bond ratings are very good. We're AA2, AA3. Those are very good bond ratings.
How long does it take for you to respond to a request for, what's the time frame for application and then response?
So that's another great question. So typically, from start to finish, when we set an application deadline, have an application deadline to the closing of a bond issue about 110 days. Now that might seem like a long time, but if you think about, you've got 5 or 6 jurisdictions, depending on what you sit in Maryland, one jurisdiction, the local governmental body may only meet once a month, versus some meet once a week, and depending on the charter, it will determine the form of the legislation. If it's a resolution, maybe it only requires 1 reading. If it's an ordinance, it may require 2 readings. There may be a referendum period. That adds up very quickly. You could be 60 days plus 20 days referendum period before your legislation is fully enacted. And while that's all going on, we're working and doing the other aspects of the financing, working with the investment bankers, going, sending a credit package to the rating agencies, doing our due diligence, the tax due diligence, all the things, for about 110 days from start to finish.
A lot of times with grants, they'll want to know if you have other funds to help supplement the cost. They want to know if you've heard back and has it been awarded, is it pending, and that sort of thing. It's nice to know sort of what the timeline would be on the response to that.
And I've had different questions with grant program managers about it, sort of this chicken and the egg thing. They go, well, we'd really like you to secure your funding first, but ideally, we'd like you to secure your grant funding first.
Right. Sometimes that's longer than 90 or 100
Right.
days, yeah.
Right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks again, appreciate it.
Thanks, gentlemen.
You're welcome to stick around, or you're welcome to exit. It's up to you guys.
Thank you.
I'm going to call up the guys from Sideline Properties, and you guys might want to stick around and listen to this presentation.
Sure.
We may, I've had some preliminary talks with these two young guys, and I want to find out where they're at. Might want to give Gene one too.
Yeah, sure.
Well, listen, I appreciate you guys coming in. I know I invited you to come in to give us an update on exactly where you're at. I know there's been some challenges throughout this whole process, and tell us where you're at.
Well, thanks for having us. First of all, we're glad to be here. Mike and I and the team that we have been working on this pretty tirelessly for several months. You know, we're happy to be here to give you guys an update of where we're at and maybe talk about how to move forward a little bit with the project. So the package you have in front of you is just an update from the last time that you saw the project, and kind of to give you an update of where we're at today and what we're working on. So currently, we submitted our stormwater management plans back in June. We've been working with the Soil Conservation District on it, and our concept plans that were submitted in April. We've executed some agreements with the town for both the water tower and utility easements that you guys will need for the Southfield project. Does everybody know what project we're talking about, where it's at? Do you want me to take a step back a little bit and fill you in on that? Or are we all familiar with the project? I think we're all familiar. I just wanted to make sure I didn't.
Anyone in the, well, the folks, our guests here today, this is, the town of Elkton is working on a project called Southfields. It's 700-800 acres. I get all over the place with the amount of numbers it is. It's a $700 to $800 million project. This is a portion of the PUD, which is the Sportsplex section. And this is, in my opinion, the most important part, the linchpin of the whole project.
Ours too.
Yeah, is the Sportsplex, because this will be the play, but the economic development driver for our town moving forward. And I think there's going to be some financing questions, so that's why it's good to have you guys here. This is perfect timing.
Might be perfect timing.
There you go.
So what we are also doing, you know, in the process is we've rearranged this project a little bit. I'll go over all of those with you to kind of give you some insight on what we've been doing on the design. But we're currently interviewing architectural firms for the design of our central corridor, which will mean more to you in just a couple minutes. That'll house our bathrooms, our maintenance departments, our maintenance buildings and stuff. So we've recently, or in the last year, we hired a new engineering firm. They're called the LDD, Leading Design and Development Group. This team, we felt it was best to go with them because they're geared towards sports complexes. They've worked in Cecil County. They've worked in the state of Maryland. They're currently working with the Baltimore Ravens on their fields and their sports complex. So they're very knowledgeable in the systems and the caliber of project that we're trying to put together. So bringing them on the team is integral for us. and they've been working on taking our design, and we've redesigned a couple things and been able to get our construction plan. We're moving into the approval phase and have submitted some plans for approval. We've gotten comments. We plan to submit a second round of plans within the next week or so to keep the project moving. We've also added the Base Sports Group, which is a marketing team that will help us target teams and get the marketing for all of our sports teams coming to the facility and working directly with us to market the fields. We've been working with the town and KCI. You know, like I said a little earlier, we had some construction easements for the water tower. We have some easements that need to go down Frenchtown Road. We're more than happy to make those happen. We also are managing the stormwater management for the town water tower parcel. So we've been able to incorporate that through our new design team to take on the stormwater management for the water tower. So the next page is our updated kind of design, and I'll just kind of go broad strokes. What we've done here is realigned our fields. Based on the last project you saw, there was a lot of concrete, a lot of walkways, a lot of impervious surfaces. So we got together and figured out how to realign a central corridor that will have access around all of the fields, and we're able to actually decrease the impervious surfaces by 65%. In that, we realized that we needed a space where we have great facilities for bathrooms, convenient store, convenient items, water, sandwiches, as people are going to spend the whole day here. Us traveling around, we've realized that that's a real need and a real niche. So we tried to be innovative to adding a building, which is right in the middle. If you look at the plan, it's just a rectangular placeholder, but that building is a 3-story building, which will have, markets on the first floor. We'll have some mezzanine office space and a 3rd floor viewing deck that, when you go to watch, sports, your grandchildren, or even bringing coaches and people looking at kids, it's an area where they can go to watch the player and then talk to them and have a great space. So this space is pretty innovative to what we're trying to do, and we've added that placeholder. That's what we're working on with the architects now to design and have a better idea of what that looks like. I think we move on to the economic impacts, which I'll let Mike.
Yeah. So as Rob had said, when Ray Jackson came in and started Southfields, and we're very proud to be partners with him on this. We are the local component, and it has been our goal since the beginning is to keep this local and to fund it locally if possible, and to keep the economic impact here locally. We're familiar with some of the other fields around the county that people do not have the facilities to stay close by. They're staying outside of the county, and therefore the county is not seeing the economic impact that they should from something that is world-class like this. So as you guys know, we've spoken about this a lot, either individually or in a group like this, that it's been our goal to try to keep that economic impact here so that we can both support the kids in this community, number one, but more also just as important is to keep that economic impact here to help the community be able to drive this into the future. So more importantly, we see this as providing a transient dollar economic impact. For me, I've said this in many meetings, but a transient dollar, actually, they come and spend their money and they go home and they don't require all the services that someone who lives here does. And to a community, and as a taxpayer in this community, a lifelong resident of this community, that's important to me, where we can get someone to come here and visit and enjoy Elkton. But at the same time, they spend their money and then they go home to their home and leave those transient dollars here for us to enjoy and to spend wisely at your discretion. And then, just as a reminder, it was a $60 million annual direct and indirect impact just from the sports park alone. Southfields as a whole was about $126 million. Half of that was just from the sports park. And that half is a direct impact from youth sports, travel sports industry, which is a $7 billion U.S. business right now. The economic impact is expected to see 250,000 visitors to the park annually and also include 45,000 hotel rooms that are generated annually. Some of the intangible impacts, we We staffed an office years ago now, as you know, on Main Street, down the street from C3 and across from the coffee shop. Our staff worked tirelessly to develop what I believe is the most comprehensive list of travel organizations and travel teams that is developed anywhere in the country. We have over 30,000 travel teams that have said they were committed to come here and play when we're done, when it's built. We have over 400 colleges that have committed to come and scout kids here. Our kids in the community playing travel sports, not having to spend money, and being able to be seen by colleges and get scholarships as a result of what we're doing here. These are intangibles that you can't put a price tag on, because that will turn into more people into this community educated who want to be a part of this community instead of going elsewhere. The travel sports opportunity to the county and town families, there are a lot of families that can't afford to do travel sports. They can't afford to do the travel piece alone, nevertheless the actual sports themselves. But we would have the opportunity to have a world-class facility that would allow kids to play travel sports here without having to incur the expense of the hotels and the travel that families have a very difficult time doing right now. And on top of that, the ancillary business opportunities, you know, when we went in front of the Planning Commission, immediately people were coming and saying, well, you know, how about a RV park? Where's the RV park going to be? I'm like, I don't know, but it's not on our parcel. We don't have room for it, you know. There are a lot of ancillary opportunities here that can be built in and around this sports park that I believe makes us a destination and allows people to extend what is typically a 3 or 4 day tournament into a week-long vacation here in Cecil County and in the town of Elkton, instead of just being a place to come and play a game and leave. And if you want to see an example of that going on right now, yes, you probably recognize the Little League is down in the park, and they've been there several days in a row. And having things for people to do here is just as important as having the facility to play the games to begin with.
And to add to that, the Elkton Little League is hosting the state championships in downtown, and I'm going to touch base on it. We've had a lot of rain, which also pushes these tournaments out, right?
Yes.
And I know when you have a facility that's high and dry, you'll never miss a game. The only time you miss a game is lightning storm, right?
Absolutely. And I will tell you, you know, personally, I would have loved to have all grass fields and shown the best way to do this, you know, to be a world-class all grass and dirt field. But the truth is, you just can't guarantee that it's going to be able to, you know, you have families traveling from around the country. And when they get here, you can't say, well, you're going to have to wait an extra day or an extra 2 days and you extend these games out. Or what a lot of places do is they cancel them and they send them home and they don't get their money back. These places do not refund their money. We don't think that's a good business model at all. You know, we think we owe it to the community to try to guarantee the games, to provide a great place to play, a safe place to play. But at the same time, we can do that and hold those schedules with a turf park that is not something that can be done, obviously, in a grass or dirt field. As you guys know, we've been talking about this before, but the land was purchased and is now owned by Sideline Properties, by Brad and myself. And we've hired and allocated the space to Sideline Properties for a few years. All the engineering permits, applications, and everything that's been done on this so far has been privately funded by Brad and myself. You know, we've taken this on as a passion project. We are ingrained in this community. We have multiple businesses in this community. We're both, you know, a couple of decades long as business owners. My wife being an attorney in town, and as you know, recently, along with Ray Jackson, I'm now involved in Patriots Glen Golf Course. All that to say, we are not an outside person coming here to talk to you today about this. We believe this is an economic powerhouse for the town of Elkton. We believe this is a game changer for the community. We believe it provides tax revenue beyond the likes that Elkton has ever seen, and we have examples that are surrounding us, and if we don't take advantage of it, we're going to miss the boat, and unfortunately, all of the work that we've put in the last several years is going to be for nothing. So, through all of this, keep in mind, we've continued the hope and the push during the pandemic and through the pandemic. I know we've all talked individually about this. It has been a challenge to do that, to both stay the course and also to stay focused on that. We have actively pursued capital and equity and additional conventional financing through multiple banks. We've spoken to multiple capital firms, and the bottom line is this. If you go after private money and you're going to work with a bank, they want us to back and to therefore give up a lot of our project. that is not a local interest at that point. If we end up going to someone outside of here and we're to finance this, they want half or more of the project, which means we no longer control it. Our goal to the town since the beginning is we want to do this for the community. We don't have to do this. This wasn't our lifelong passion. We grew into this over time with our kids playing sports. Now that we're here and we're doing this, we owe it to the town to at least let you know that if we were to do this privately, we don't think that's the best thing for the town or the community. We don't think it provides the same economic powerhouse, and it certainly will not provide the same opportunities for the kids that live here. It will not. As a result, we looked at some of the comparable sports parks that have been successful around the area. This is not something that's new, and our ask to you today is to become a partner of ours in the funding and the construction of this sports park. We believe in it, obviously. We put a lot of time, effort, and private money into it, this park, to get this far. And if you look at Lake Point, Georgia, if you look at the Delaware Turf, which is down off of Route 1, it was completely built with state money initially, and everybody said, who in the heck is going to go there? It's out in the middle of nowhere. And they're currently building their third hotel right next to it as a result. Ripken and Aberdeen, Spookynook and Lancaster, sports parks in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and Cedar Point, all of these which we have visited, and we have talked to the owners, and we understand the funding mechanisms. All of them had a public-private partnership arm to get it done. They all had some sort of local municipal interest and involvement in order to take this across the finish line. And the reason is because they wanted to have some control over it as well. They wanted to be able to direct this to the community that they serve and not just be a place where people come and play ball and we collect $1 on the way in. It is just that important. So to that end, we wanted to discuss the possibility of partnering with the town of Elkton to pull a bond of which we would pay the entire debt service. The first $1 in the door would go back to that debt service to pay that bond, to build the sports park, and to continue what we've been working on the last several years. And I'll open it up for questions.
Well, it's we've had some discussions outside of this, and I've done my best to prepare myself, and I know it's probably new to the whole board here, or maybe you've mentioned it to the group. And believe me, I have looked at every sportsplex that is successful across the country, and there has been assistance either via the municipality owns this facility, or there's a mechanism in place to where they fund it and it's paid for by the revenue produced of the facility. I don't know enough about how actually revenue bonds work, but I know that we know a lot of people during the last 2 years, we've gotten ourselves where we've talked about special taxing districts, the TIP district for the town. We've learned a lot about these tools that we have in our toolbox. I think that we have some experts that we can ask. As our gentleman that came in before, these projects have to rate, rank, and score well before they're even considered by any entity, right?
And that's an excellent point. Like you, we spent a lot of time through this 5-year process of meeting with people to learn about the funding possibilities. And what we found through the bond process is that through a bond and a qualified management agreement, which is set up with all of us, it rates our project and dives into both the revenue and the construction side, as well as the town and their ability to pull the bond to make sure that it is all viable. And as a third party designation that has nothing to do with us other than providing the information. I think that's critical for all of us, because we don't want to get into a project, obviously, that isn't going to succeed, and we certainly wouldn't ask you to do that. But at the same point, it is a good sanity check for all of us to make sure that it's a possibility. But I think it is critical, and I think you pointed it out, that we are not asking for the town to fund it. We're asking for the town to help finance it, of which we would pay the entire debt service.
You know, it's, looking at, I think I started out the conversation a little bit about the Southfields project and how this was the a driving agent for the live, work, play side of things. And, you know, I know where my vote is going to move forward with this, because I know that it's that important. I also know that if this happens, we're going to get those couple hotels, the multiple restaurants that we need. In fact, Jean Minner is up next, and she's going to be talking to us about our Sustainable Communities program. And one of the things that was talked was more, we need more hotels, right? We need more in our community. And these are things that are so, I feel so critical for us. But I do have a couple of questions I'd like to ask you. And maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse here. But I would say one thing that we're lacking in our own Parks and Rec program is outdoor facility to use that's high and dry. We can't even, as a town, plan on having programs because we never know when that park is going to flood. Right? Would I get a commitment out of you guys to say that 1 or 2 days a week during business hours, if it's not in any conflict with any of the sports programs and travel, do you think that we could work these things out to where we have the ability to use those spots, right?
Of course, we committed to that from the very beginning. Again, we recognize that the actual economic powerhouse is really a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or maybe a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but the rest of the time during the week, and especially most of the day on Sunday as these tournaments start to wind down, are all available. And we have reached out to all of the little leagues in the county. We have reached out to Cecil Soccer. We have reached out to all of these organizations. Most recently, I talked to the Junior Football League to see what would be possible. And they said they love the idea, but they don't think they would need it here based on some other things they were doing. Well, we're talking to them now about working with them. For the tournaments that have committed to coming here, they're some of the largest in the country that want to come here because of our location. We went to Cecil County Public Schools and said, can we use your fields, and we will maintain those fields for you. We'll take our economic powerhouse that we're building, and we'll help maintain your fields for you, and then you can still use them, obviously. We want to use them on the weekends when you're not using them anyway. They love the idea. This is supposed to be a reciprocal partnership between us and you so that we can benefit the community. The fact that it's going to be an economic powerhouse is second to me. I really think that it's going to be a great thing for the community and for the kids here. And if you talk to the Little League World Series right now, which have been dancing around all these storms and all this weather, and you think about what we would have had available for them on a minute's notice, even if they wanted to stay where they were, but they had an opportunity to go there if they had to, we would be able to do that in a minute's notice.
Well, I think, you know, I'm even thinking that I can look at the past when we had the Babe Ruth World Series down there. We had the difficulties of the flooding as well as the drought that we had down there. And then I think about just this past week, the families that have came from Brunswick, Maryland, from Cumberland, Maryland. They're driving into Elkton, hoping to have a very nice day, a nice event, and then the game gets postponed a whole day. Now, it may not sound a lot, but I can promise you, I'm a guy that travels a lot. And if I have to travel 3.5 hours with my family to go back and forth to Cumberland because our date's messed up, it's not a good thing.
Yep.
And now, once again, you're only looking at one date here, and I don't want to make such a big deal out of this, just this one date. But this could prolong, I mean, this thing will grow. It's going to have huge legs, and it's going to be huge for our community. I'd like to ask the board if and we'll bring it up at the next meeting, next Wednesday's meeting, but I'd like for the board to think about bringing in, I think it's Chris Sheenan? Sheenan, who was the bond guy that was here, and ask them how we could do, my little bit of research shows that there could be a revenue bond maybe, or there could be, I don't know, I got two guys back here with their mind thinking right now, which is great from the state of Maryland, but I was thinking a revenue bond instead of a general obligation bond. A general obligation bond, if something happens, then it sticks to town. A revenue bond is based on your revenues. The people that buy the bond understand that if it was to fail, there's no obligation to the town. I believe that that's how it is, but that's the way I read it. But I'm not 100% sure of those, and we'd have to have an expert answer that for us. Is the board okay if we take that step? How do you feel?
Well, yeah, I'm usually one of those skeptical, critical
Yep, and that's why, listen, that's what makes us a good team.
people on the board.
But not this time, right?
Not this time.
Not this time?
I support this 100%.
Absolutely.
I do.
How do you feel about
I
it?
see what we can accomplish now, and I see what we can, like you said, accomplish over time and grow. And absolutely, we need it. And you have been a great partner. And I think the trust that I have in you gentlemen is what drives my decision.
Thank you. That means a lot.
That's a big part of it, I agree.
I just think that the cooperative effort of not only you, but the surrounding schools and facilities here on a given day, on a given time, with circumstances or not circumstances, that you would allow them to use that facility. And I always keep thinking of my son, and sometimes I think he's crazy. Last year, he went to California for the soccer, the travel soccer. Oh, man. But fortunately for him, he knew somebody in California, so not only did he go there with his son, they paid the train, the air flight, but they had somebody there. But he travels all around to these different places, actually bypassing what's around here.
5 years ago, it was a little more selfish for me. I thought we'd get it done by now. To be honest, my kids are now out of travel ball, so we're doing it more for the community than for the kids. But I was looking forward to the same thing. But,
And now
it's a
over
bigger
here,
lift
you got
than
the fellow, the 76ers facility up
That's
there
right.
where you have these kids coming down from New York and what have you, so they still play there a great deal.
Yeah.
You fine? Well,
I did have one other question. How do you generate your numbers when you say these facilities will attract X amount of people? And of course, you must figure out the fact that you need X amount of hotels and this, that, and the other, but you must be, how do you generate numbers?
That's no problem. We actually did an economic impact study for all of Southfields, and the sports park was a part of that, and that's what they came back with. That was a third-party examination. They looked at some of the other sports parks that I mentioned, Lake Point, sports parks, which are very similar to ours, to generate those numbers. By the way, that 45,000 hotel number was in year one. So I believe that's going to grow over time.
And the other question was, and you have a bullet point here, the consolidation of fields for large gathering events. I see the fields.
Yeah.
But what's your point in saying the consolidation?
You see the two rectangular fields that are pushed together now on the left side of the diagram? That was separate fields before, and we put them together. We were thinking, 5K runs, triathlon lines, large events where we want to have people that can separate, but be in a large gathered area that, without having to separate them in multiple different fields.
The other part was to hold people here. Right? We want them to stay and help them be here after the tournament. We could have other events after the tournament that day. So it's a multiple day tournament. So we wanted a venue space to be able to hold people there.
And that's great with the runs and everything else you have out there. That's a big attraction. And I also think that, or what do you think about the erection of the water park in Perryville? Will that help you in any sense?
It has a possibility, but to be candid, their design is also to keep people there. If you've ever been to one, they charge an incredible amount of money per day to stay at the Great Wolf Lodge. And to that end, I think people that go there will probably want to make sure they take advantage of that, to leave there and go play ball for several hours, maybe unlikely. So that's my personal opinion.
Or the invite is that they come to you and during the off time they can go there.
That may be okay if they sell those kinds of tickets, but I don't know what the end result would be of that. But I do agree with you, that would be fantastic. Or maybe we find our own water park to build here in Elkton.
That's why you got them sitting back there.
let's do this. We'll get in touch with Christina. Can't guarantee anything. There's no guarantees, but I'd like to see what the costs are going to be, to see how this actually rates, ranks, and scores, per se. And I know I got the gentlemen here from the state of Maryland. They're kind of thinking of maybe some options. Well, listen, we just don't know. Is there any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I just for the mayor and the commissioners is that it speaks at a higher level why it's so important to invest in infrastructure. And there are a couple things that come to mind immediately is that it does expand economic opportunities, right? It does create, these infrastructure improvements create good paying jobs. The other thing is that it often attracts additional investment from the private sector when you have a municipality or state or county involved in it. And thirdly, it strengthens the community. And lastly, it promotes regional competitiveness. And that's one thing that when we travel and visit local governments, it is about regional competitiveness. Like it or not, you're competing against Aberdeen. You're competing against Bel Air.
We are.
Really are.
Yeah.
We are,
And
and we like it.
Yeah.
And I can't sit here in my position and advocate for them. I don't know them
Right.
or the state, but just at a higher level, why it's important to invest in infrastructure. About revenue bonds, I'll put my financial hat on for a second. The strongest security pledge a local government can make is its full faith and credit general obligation pledge. Revenue pledges, generally speaking, are lesser security pledges, and just understand that with a weaker security pledge that you make, your cost of capital will go up. Revenue pledges just don't rate, generally speaking, as highly as general obligation pledges. But you're also looking at your risk, and what risk tolerance does the town of Elkton have as it pertains to moving forward with projects like this, and the demands that you have for your full faith and credit general obligation pledge. You've got to prioritize the projects, right? Water and sewer is also important.
It is, absolutely.
So just, that's it, sorry.
Charles, thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you, and we'll get back in touch with you. But listen, I appreciate the honesty coming forth, and listen, I also want to state to you, a few months ago, I guess it was in end of December, and I think it's very important for everyone kind of on record to know, Patriots Glen Golf Course was up for sale and up for auction, and they were real close to closing their doors. I personally went to Ray Jackson at Stonewall, and he stepped up, you stepped up to take Patriots Glen to a whole new level here. And I invite anyone to go out there to see that this course is in as good a shape as it is. What you've done in 6 months, or actually 7 months, compared to what has been going on for the last 15 years, it's just absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And some of the techniques that you have brought into the play here, you've got the irrigation finally working again. I see that you got the pond on number 8, I think it's 8 now, filled to the brim. And it looks great out there. Things look great. So
Great, beautiful wall.
and I can tell you the homeowners can do nothing but brag about that facility. They love that they can go there and get a sandwich and get an adult beverage and overlook the golf course. I mean, it's just beautiful.
Well, we look forward to the same thing here at the sports park. One of my goals was to show you kind of what we can do with Vision together, and to protect the revenue, the tax revenue that surrounds that golf course is important for the town, and it's important for me as a business owner and a citizen.
Are you thinking about running for mayor? Is that what you're doing here?
I'm not thinking about running for anything, but I do appreciate that very much, and it means a lot. Thanks.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Gene, you're next up. And Nick.
Nick's gonna distribute an amended sheet for one of the pages in the plan. I usually keep editing until the day I have to send it in, so.
So Jean and her team put together the Sustainable Communities Program, the application for this designation renewal. She sent it over to us via email earlier in the week, and I have to tell you, I went through every page of it, and her team did a fantastic job on this project.
Yeah, we were required to convene a work group to take a look at the previous plan from 2017 and update it as needed. That work group consisted of Mayor Alt, Jessica Price from the Elkton Alliance, Margie Blystone, Danny DeMarinis, Candy Bathon, John Esser from Cecil College, Danielle Carroll, Nick, and myself. And so we spent, I believe it was we had 9 meetings. It was really good discussion on updating the plan. The plan addresses, in order for us to apply for grant funds through the state, we're required to have a sustainable community, an approved sustainable community plan. And the plan covers such items as environment, economic development, housing, transportation, quality of life, and staffing, local staffing. So the first part covers questions, specific questions about each of those topics and how we address them if we haven't, what were the challenges and that sort of thing. The second half is the action plan. And the action plan covers the same topics, but there's also a list of grants that we had obtained in the past 5 years. I need to edit this to also include the 3 grants that we received for Elk Landing. Elk Landing had applied for the grants, but technically it's the town property, so we're going to take credit for those grants. So we've had quite a bit of success with the grant process. So in the action plan, we list our strengths and weaknesses, and
where are you at on there?
All the way down to the second, halfway through the packet. I was just going to do a real quick summary.
Oh, okay.
So where the action items are. Section B. The town administrator pointed out to me that I need to do some pagination so that I can refer to a single page, and I will address that.
That's all right.
So each of the topics, for instance, we'll list our strengths and our weaknesses. And under the weaknesses is where you would then develop your action items. How would you address those weaknesses? And we have the desired outcomes and progress measures and strategies and action items. And we've taken the items listed under weaknesses for each of those categories and come up with strategies to address the big ones. Some minor ones can be handled relatively simply, but we've gone through, for example, under environment, everything from a comprehensive I&I analysis, flood control, compliance with PMBL and MS4 requirements, to East High Street Park acquisition, the Elk Landing ball fields, that sort of thing, and how we would approach completing those items, the action items. And the same thing with economy, transportation, housing, and community health and quality of life, and then the last is local government or local planning and staffing capacity. Is there, sorry, constantly dropping this thing. Is there anything that you'd like me to go into more detail about, or because there's a lot here?
I can tell you, when I reviewed it, I thought you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great job.
Very detailed.
It's a lot of work, but it's great because you take a detailed look at the town, and
It's amazing
I
how
like our
much-
strengths. I really like our strengths. And our weaknesses can be addressed. We've been really successful with grants, and we're going to continue to do that, to apply for grants to achieve some of these strategies.
I was going to say, how do you know who follows up on these weaknesses?
The town as a whole. So,
Right.
and one of the ways that we could do that is if we had a prioritized list, the capital improvement plan, that where the town, you all would determine what your priorities are.
We need to do that, otherwise this
It's
gets
a lot.
put over here.
I think that they've laid it out for us,
Absolutely.
and
but
all we have to do is
follow through.
prioritize it.
Yep, exactly. I know that you were going to have a meeting with the town administrator about your visions for the town, and this might help with that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I agree.
would like a very strategic, detailed plan on how we're gonna address these things. And, so that there's no farming in here.
And in the beginning, they just asked for a couple of, from last time, what action items did we identify last time in 2017 that we did achieve? And the neighborhood community center was a big one.
Yes.
So.
And you're aware of which ones we did not address yet.
And there's some ones that are
So,
complicated.
well.
They have a lot of, the flooding control
Flooding.
is,
Yeah.
because we need a plan for that, but we need something really comprehensive. It's gonna have to be a big plan. A lot of times, grants don't want to fund, grant providers don't want to fund plans. They want to fund, shovel in the ground, brick and mortar projects. But with that, there's so many moving parts to that in the different sections of town, but it needs to be comprehensive for the flood control. I did apply. I applied to the capital grant, knowing that they probably weren't going to give it to me, but they told me to send it in anyway, so they could consider possibly funding more planning grants for flooding.
We appreciate that,
Oh,
Gene.
God, yes, thank you. We gotta get moving on this. That's one thing I like to see done before I'm.
Mayor, have you given any thought to the dates that we might sit down with Louis?
I haven't, since last week, I haven't put together any dates or times.
Yeah, I'd like to move forward with that, especially now that we're presented with this.
I think we'll do it on a Wednesday, and then we'll just come in a little bit earlier and meet, if that's all right with everyone.
Yeah.
Is that all right with me?
So we'll use Gene's tool here as that.
The work group meetings are really helpful, and I can tell you that the folks that participated in it were eager to meet again to then see different benchmarks when, maybe once a year, find out what are the status of certain projects, that sort of thing.
Well, good. Any other questions for Gene?
We got an email today,
Good package.
I believe. It's the Federal Highway Administration Communities Pilot Grant Program. Did you get to see that? Yeah? I'm just wondering, I'm curious what this is about. It talks about, grant money that we may be interested. I don't know if we would be qualified or not, but we certainly do have we have that road, it's South Street, that we still want to pursue. I don't know where we're at on that, the extension. Can you take a look at that if I?
Sure, and the important thing is when, this has a lot of projects in it, and I wanted to make sure I included everything, because if a grant opportunity arises and I apply, the first question they ask is it in your sustainable communities plan?
There you go.
Because if it's not, then we have to sort of justify it as to why we're asking for it.
Do you want to tell the board how this plan will be executed in time? Because it has to go to Maryland Department of Planning or the governor's office.
Governor's office of.
So it's not just an instant thing.
No, the governor's smart growth sub-cabinet are the ones that look at the plan and will approve it. We've had two other plans. They started in 2012 with this requirement in order to apply for grants, for state grants. And so we have submitted a 2012, a 2017, and this is our renewal.
Right.
Very good. Any other comments or questions?
No.
Thank
Great
you,
job,
guys.
Gene, Nick, and your
Thank
team.
you.
Beautiful job, thank you.
I'll be making a couple of, I think we'll bring it before the board on the 20th, just for your
Perfect.
approvals, send it to the state. There may be some minor modifications, but mostly just improving the tasks under the action. I just want to make that a little easier for you.
Very good. I think we got all the agenda items off. I wanted to mention, Lou, when you're coming, if you're driving on North Street or even on High Street, there's a tremendous amount of weeds growing on the roadway into the sidewalk. Yeah, it's just crazy right now, and I guess what I want to ask is, are guys using the ATV that we? I mean, I know you can't answer it, but we bought that ATV, and there for a while they had the chemicals in the back of the unit, and first thing in the morning they would go up and down the roads and spray.
Sorry.
Have they been over there?
3 or 4 weeks ago.
Okay, well then.
In the, what you call it?
And we may never have done really North Street. Maybe we're not really doing that, but it's pretty rough out there right now, as Charlie said, most of them are. The other thing is, there's a pothole over on Bow and Stockton. So if you go past Donnie Hicks's place and heading toward the train station, Bowling Alley, there's a pretty huge pothole right in the middle of the road. I saw that today. Anyone? And the last thing I just wanted to mention, we had a terrible storm last night that we were very fortunate that Elkton didn't have any issues, major issues anyhow. But one of our town employees, Andy Tour, who works for the Elkton Police Department, the tree landed on his home. He lost his boat. He lost his truck, and he's
And they were in Florida, right?
Yeah, and he's in Florida right now. He's in Florida, and his truck got totaled. His boat got totaled. His porch is knocked off of his house. I guess what I'm asking, Lou, if there's any assistance the town of Elkton can do for Andy and his family, maybe. He lives off of Town Point Road. I know it's about 15 miles from here, but I don't know if there's any assistance we can give, but if there's a way we can get a message to him, maybe we can help in some manner.
Wow.
You guys all good with that? I mean,
Anyway, we can help.
anyway, now I can tell you the roads are, I just got a text that Schaefer's still isn't open. Schaefer's Canal House isn't open, and there's a lot of power that's been out throughout there, all Town Point Road. Port Herman, a lot of the public structures were destroyed last night with a lot of trees. It was very fast, and if you go down Oldfield Point Road, now my business is down there in Northeast. It missed us, but it took the power out, but just pretty much everything on the point of Oldfield Point Road, they still don't have power. Took down poles, and snapped poles right in half. Crazy
We
storm.
were lucky though.
Does anyone else have anything to say today during this workshop?
I would like to know, since, where are we on that extension of South Street?
Lou, where are we at on the South Street extension?
We're on hold, and the reason is there's so many properties involved. In order to extend that, there's like 10 properties we'd have to acquire. So I believe I spoke about that to the board a while back, and we put it on hold for the time being. Otherwise, we're going to have to, if we want to move forward on it, we're going to have to use either John or Terry Seaman or somebody to try to buy all this property. We never budgeted for purchase of multiple real estate on that.
And you have a lot of properties there on Collins Street that people who perhaps own the property 25 or 30 years are dead. Other people just been paying the taxes with little or nothing,
Yeah, there's.
I don't know how you get the property.
John, can you research that a little bit, maybe? Is that?
Well, I mean, you either buy it or you take it.
I was gonna say, is there another way to take it, yeah?
Well, that's a condemnation process.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly
just sitting
doable.
there.
but it's
Eminent domain, I'm not sure how much time in court that involves.
Oh, it will be painful.
Well, I mean, if there was an honest.
Well, let's give it a little thought on how we want to proceed till next Wednesday. I think we all want that road. And Lou's right, we didn't budget for it, but maybe we can, we know we can, if we get the second amount of the ARPA money, or we can borrow some money.
It's in the plan.
It is.
It's in the plan.
It's in the plan.
I
It's
think
been in the plan for years, I mean, years,
Yeah.
coming through there.
we gotta get that road open, that's just, would make it so much
We built the
better.
building and we want good access and Stockton is not.
Stockton
Good
Street is not good access, is
Not
right.
at all. The only thing is there someone from State Highway that we have a rapport with?
County vendor, he's
Who
a
is he?
district engineer. for-
Okay.
For District 2.
So he oversees everything?
He's a district engineer.
Okay.
For
I'm
this
just
whole-
wondering, I don't want to be overly critical, that's it can be, but it just seems like with State Highway, it's like grass cuttings aren't a priority with them here in Elkton. What they did on Delaware Avenue, I'm curious why they even did it.
Money.
Money.
District 2 has over 2,000 miles of roadway and limited amount of money to overlay, mill and overlay those
But
streets.
there was
They
nothing
use
wrong
different
with Delaware
techniques.
Avenue.
That was a restoration technique that they prioritized.
I felt like,
that road.
to me, it felt like we were a test. There was nothing wrong with Delaware Avenue, in my opinion, and now
It's rough.
it's worse. It's like they came up and messed it up, like why? And then we have Route 7, was put on hold till Pearlville, and I'm wondering, does anybody from the state actually come up here and look at that? How bad it is? You know, I'm like,
Where?
Hold on, Mark Pike.
oh, well, yeah, Route 7.
That's going to be done. The Maryland 281, are you talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's going to be real.
but they don't have a
redone.
date, right?
They're going to do they have 213 to do, and then that's going to be
Yeah.
one of the projects. He already called me about that.
Okay, good.
This year?
I can't tell you when.
Okay.
All he told me was when they get done 213, that the 281 would be a project that was.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it would be nice, you know, okay, well, that's half the information that we would like to have. The Delaware Avenue Bridge, we're not moving there, but then,
Actually, something's going on there because, no, he's not here, Dan. Dan met with one of the state highway people down there about, we have a water line that goes across there and they wanted to know how we want to maintain that water line. But it's still in the design phase and it's moving, actually moving forward.
Talking about the
Because I
footbridge.
talked to the state highway guy when he was down there and they had, right away, people had been there and everything. So
Really?
it's still an active design project.
and Mayor, you know, I'm still curious why State Highway has denied access to 279 on that Annex property. I don't understand it. I question it.
Mm-hmm.
And to have someone to, I don't know, discuss it with, or
We received a letter some time ago about the denied access because that corridor was funded partially with federal money.
okay.
And under the premise under which it was created was to deny access to it. Don't ask me why, and I don't know the details, but we did get a letter from the state highway way back when.
I remember, but I didn't
that
understand
corridor
it.
was not accessible.
Any communication.
Except
have-
on each end, you know, of course.
At Bell Hill, of course,
Yeah, they get down on the road, you know, going that way for. part
but
of it.
no other access? And why can't we address that, or what?
I don't know. Well, we don't own it, so we can't do anything about it. But Gene talked to somebody with the Ayers property that time.
Yeah, I mean, I believe originally, some of that road right-of-way was, that the state had gotten rid of that, they sold it. But they sold it to the adjacent property owners, very cheaply, with the understanding that there's no access to the highway with that. And I think they wanted a free-flowing road system there, through there, without a lot of interruptions in traffic. It was my understanding years ago that the only way they could get a break in traffic is if a town road, we have to demonstrate a need for the economic development of that project, of that property, and then it would have to be a town road with a service road serving the properties. But
You mean like Airport Road is? like you go off the main highway and then onto a private road?
Onto the service road.
But it's possible, huh?
But that was years ago.
I don't know. Okay.
I'm not sure what the current requirements are for any kind of break and access. I know that I was not informed that the break and access was denied to the heirs. They apparently sent that information to the county and not to us.
Yeah.
During the annexation process.
And I think quite frankly, I think the county executive was the one that didn't want any access. They didn't want everything.
With
So that
you
was
on it,
the-
I think that a little higher.
Yeah.
I
think
really
it-
do.
I
And-
think
and-
it was.
Okay,
It was.
yeah.
Anything else?
One of the things I included in here was for a study of the 279 Elkton Road and Bell Hill Road intersection, where that awkward stacking is with the truck, that needs to be looked at and redesigned, because it's awful. It limits economic development on that portion of Bell Hill
Yeah,
Road.
I mean, you know, that partial right there would be lovely for hotels or whatever. And take care of the need that we might have with the sports complex. But not having access to me makes no sense at all. But thank you very much. Thank you. I'm
Do
done.
you guys have anything? Rob, you got anything?
No, I wish I would have asked while Brad was here. I don't know if anybody else can answer this, but I'm wondering where we are with the lights across Main Street. I missed the last meeting with AUI. I was out of town. And I know Brad's been very involved in it, and I've been involved in it from the beginning. Does anybody have any input on where we might be with the lights strung across Main Street?
I don't know. Dan may have something,
Yeah.
but I'm not involved in that project.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I thought I'd ask.
One of the questions I have real quick from the board, Christine, anyone to talk to about bonds?
Yeah.
When do you want, when do you want to invite him here and talk to you?
I would see when his schedule will allow it. Next Wednesday or Wednesday after, or not the next, if it's not next week, then it'd have to be
In August.
August.
Well, I'll contact him.
That'd be great.
I
Yeah.
do have one thing. I asked Dwayne to stop in because he asked me a question the other day and I couldn't answer it. And we don't have our meetings like we usually have. And so I know it's a work session, but if you'll give him a minute or two to address the board because he asked me some questions, I'd rather for him to ask the board.
Oh, good afternoon. Thank you for the time.
Yeah.
I was here last month
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
about the situation, about the trailers and stuff. And I know I asked y'all to send me something and I ain't received nothing yet. So I gave y'all enough time to follow up on it and now I'm trying to find out what's going on.
Enlighten us on, I mean, I know it's about the trailer, but you asked for a letter?
Yeah, I asked for a letter, just tell me what you're gonna do about it and everything. Cause like I said, it's been a month and I've ride around town and I'm still seeing trailers on the street. And then I'm
It's a law
having,
enforcement issue. I don't know why. As long as it's public open space.
Well, listen, we owe some type of answer to Dwayne, and it could be as simple as the law enforcement. I know that they went out there. I know that they went through the area, but you need to know what we're doing to handle this situation.
yes, like I said, they target me for the situation. Like I said, I ride around town and I see all these different trailers around and I'm being targeted. And where I'm seeing what's going on, what I believe, it's my neighbor. And my neighbor, I think, excuse me, because I'm not this way, because I love everybody. I think they're prejudiced. I think everybody that's in that cul-de-sac that where I live at are out to get me. I don't know why, because I just bought this house about almost a year ago. And we don't bother nobody. I got grandkids that I am raising because my daughter has passed. That's why we bought the house, because we needed a bigger house.
Yeah.
So where I moved from, I never had an issue. My trailer had been on the street. Now, all of a sudden, when I moved to this cul-de-sac, I'm having this problem. And I don't know why. Because my neighbor called the cops on us because about our parking and stuff like that. And I'm getting really sick of it. I'm really getting sick of it. Because for one, I pay my taxes here in this town. My trailers are registered at the motor vehicles with tags on it. So I'm trying to find out what's the problem here. And I'm really tired of it. I'm really tired of it because it's like, it seems like I'm not getting nowhere with the town of Elkton. And
We owe you an answer. We owe you an answer, and
He's gonna have to speak with the chief of police.
Yep.
Because it's not appropriate for me to answer a law enforcement issue.
Well, let's make
especially
sure
since
that-
I don't know what the police have done. or
Well,
what
we're gonna make sure that Carolyn, Chief
Yeah,
Rogers reports to you with the situation.
yeah, because like I said, it's been over a month since I've been here.
Yep.
And I've still seeing these trailers on the street. Like I said,
Yeah, and I think he needs to know if they got citations or not.
I don't think they did because it's been a month. It's been over a
A
month.
lot of people don't respond to our citations.
Respond. No. Now, I'm gonna tell you, when the cop came, when the cop came to my house, and this is his direct words he said, if I come back here this evening and the trailers are not moved, they gonna tow them. So the same way they did me, they should do them too.
Okay.
But isn't that complaint driven by your neighbor though?
Huh?
So if the other neighbors don't call on the other trailers, no, they're not gonna go out there, right?
I'm gonna take, okay. My neighbor, when I first moved there, my neighbor said, yes, you could park the trailer down by the mailbox, that one trailer down by the mailbox, and park this one here in front of my house, which I did. Then I got another lady that lived down on the corner.
And Dwayne, just, not to cut you off, man, no disrespect to you, but even though this is a work session, we have to take this offline from here.
Okay.
Because we're just repeating everything back over.
Okay.
No, okay, so we can go further with this.
Okay.
Outside here, okay?
Yeah, well, and listen, we gotta get the chief with Dwayne, okay? Done.
What, is he gonna come to my house or?
Well, I
You'll
got,
have to go over to the dispatcher, or the,
yeah,
whatever it is there, and make an appointment, and Chief Rogers will talk to him. That's
very good. Michelle, can you guide Dwayne through that? Michelle will guide you through what we gotta do,
Okay,
okay?
all right,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.